So for the longest time, there were plenty of horror movies that people loved, people talked about, people raved about, that I personally have never saw. So I decided this month, the month of October, me and my sister would watch as many horror movies as we can in this month. We watched as many as we could, and I know some of these aren't technically horror films. I just wanted to use that term. Right? So we watched 14. We got to 14 horror movies from the start of October to now. And now, since it's Halloween, it's time that I review every single one. Rank every single one. Well, there will be a small review for each one. This will be my ranking of all the horror movies I saw this month. In last place, Friday the 13th, Part 3, with a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. A 6 out of 10 is not good for me personally. I never given a movie lower than a 5. So anywhere from like a 5 to like a 6, 6.5 is a bad movie. 6.5 is kind of at the cusp, so you can be like an okay movie if you're at a 6.5. 6, so like a 6.5 to a 7.5, that's okay. 8 is good. 8.5 is really good. 9 is great. 9.5 is near perfect. And 10 is perfect. 10 is a perfect movie. So at a 6 out of 10, in last place at Friday the 13th Part 3. Now, originally I wasn't going to watch this one, but I decided to because it features Jason in his iconic mask. This is the first time he dons his iconic mask. But the movie overall just didn't work for me. I think a part of it was the setting. I think the camp setting works better. But I know this is the third one, and I personally do think that they had to move away from it for the third one. So it was cool to see Jason in his iconic mask doing his same killings. But I think the story just didn't flow as well as I think the other Jason movies did, or the other ones on this list. And the setting wasn't the best, and the setting wasn't the best in the characters. But the characters aren't usually outstanding though in the Jason franchise, in my opinion. So in last place is Friday the 13th Part 3. Next up is Friday the 13th Part 1. No. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Next up is Friday the 13th, the final chapter, at a 6.5. I think this one was a bit better. Now, the thing about this one is the first half was some of the worst stuff we got in the franchise, in my opinion. Extremely boring, not much going on. It really took a while for things to kick in. But when they did, it was some of the best stuff in the franchise. The second half, I think, was really good. The kills were some of the best. Some of the sequences with the girl and Jason and the kid, that ending was cool. So I think the first half, bad. Second half was really good, so that averages out to an okay score, 6.5. Then would be Friday the 13th, Part 1 at a 6.5. Now, this might seem low to some of y'all. Some of y'all might be massive Jason fans. I don't know. So I know he's an iconic character in the slasher franchise, so this might feel low to some of y'all. But I think this is overall just a fine slasher film. It's not anything particularly extremely good. It's just a fine slasher film. And you got the interesting stuff with Jason. I think a part of it also was me thinking that we were going to see Jason Voorhees on screen with the iconic hockey mask and his machete slashing people up. But instead, there was this plot twist about his mom and Jason being dead, which is perfectly fine. But I think I was a little disappointed because it's not what I was expecting. But it's not bad. It's fine. Next up at a 7. Now, this one actually might be a bit high to y'all, is Him. Him is a movie I watched recently for the first time. I'm really going to save my thoughts on those because I will have a review for that coming out soon. So I'm going to save my thoughts on that. I gave it a 7 out of 10, which may seem a bit high to y'all. I'll explain it a bit more in my review. Next up is Friday the 13th, Part 2 at a 7.5. This one is the best one to me, in my opinion. You get Jason doing all of his killings. I think the story flows the best here. I think the story flows the best here. You get Jason with his iconic killing. You get the stuff with the girl. I think this was one of the better protagonists in the Jason franchise. I think she did a good job, and there was definitely some cool stuff in this movie, making it the best of the Jason franchise, putting it at a 7.5, Friday the 13th Part 2. Next up, I have It Chapter 2, also at a 7.5. I don't think this was as good as Part 1. I think this one was not as good. I still personally liked it. I didn't have a problem with the ending and them pretty much bullying him to death is what happened. They pretty much established in all the It franchises that, oh, if you're not scared, that's all you gotta do is not be afraid, and they did that, and it kind of worked. It is a kind of annoying when you think that's all it took to take him down, and you have like two movies that are each 2 hours long each, and it's like, oh my gosh, finally, you finally did it. But I still very much enjoyed this one, putting it at a 7.5. Next up at a 7.5, this might be low to some, it might not be, I don't know. A Nightmare on Elm Street, 7.5. Very much enjoyed this movie. I thought Freddy Krueger was very cool. I thought the dream aspect was nice. It just wasn't as, I think, interesting as some of the other movies I have above it. I think there were some story beats that after a certain amount of time feel a bit repetitive in the movie. And then I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending. The whole thing where she just kind of turned around and she was like, no. I don't remember exactly what she said. It was a minute ago, but she was like turned around and she was like, no. And he kind of like just stopped. Right? Well, it wasn't as much of a problem. They established that. They made a big point of establishing that throughout all the films. They would not let you forget. This movie, they had like a small little 2-minute segment about it, and I was like, maybe you could have did a bit more. And then he just shows back up again, and he's terrorizing them again, and then the movie ends. So I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending personally, Nightmare on Elm Street, but overall, I greatly enjoyed this movie. 7.5 is an okay score. At an 8 out of 10, I have Scary Movie. Like this one is not really a horror, more so comedy, right? It's a parody of the iconic slasher film Scream. I personally, this movie was funny. I enjoyed it. I liked all the references. There was a big reference towards the end of the movie that if we didn't watch that movie this year, we wouldn't have got that reference, which is interesting. But yeah, I thought seeing all these references were cool. I thought the movie was funny. It was very enjoyable. The kills were interesting. So put this at an 8 out of 10, which is just a good movie. Also at an 8 out of 10, I have Child's Play. Not Chucky, Child's Play, which is interesting. A lot of people know the movie by their slasher name and not the character's name. I remember my mom was like, what scary movie you watching? I was like, Child's Play. She was like, what? I was like, Chucky. She was like, oh. But Child's Play, I thought this one was very interesting. The idea of it being a doll that comes to life, I think is interesting and unique. I thought, how the story progressed, I thought was cool. The characters I thought worked. Chucky I thought was interesting. I thought this was definitely one of the better slasher films, in my opinion, at an 8. Also at an 8, I have It, the miniseries. So the original It miniseries, I had no clue what to expect from this. I didn't even realize it was a miniseries when I watched it for the first time. But I was like, let's check it out. And pleasantly surprised. It worked. It was definitely a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie. I thought the rest of the cast had good chemistry. I thought they did a good job. There was definitely some unsettling things in there, which it should be as a horror miniseries. And I thought it did its job. I didn't know what to expect, and I thought it was actually pretty solid with an 8 out of 10. Now at an 8.5, I have It Chapter 1. This is my favorite of the three. I think there's just certain things that are done better in this movie than that were done in the miniseries. I think when you take the child segment and make it its own thing instead of using it as flashback scenes, I think they handled it well in the miniseries, but I think they did it better when you let it be its own 2-hour film, right? You also make the characters a lot more interesting. All the characters, the cast has chemistry. Bill Skarsgård. Skarsgård? Whatever. He did a great job as It, the clown. He was definitely scary. Thought he did a great job as it the clown. Um, Overall, seeing how it compared to the miniseries was very cool to comparing, seeing how they handled scenes, redoing them. I thought the movie overall was great. 8.5. Also at an 8.5, I have Scream. Scream at an 8.5. This still is just a teen drama that also happens to be a horror slasher film. I think the merging of genres, they did a great job. All the characters are great. Now, going into this, I thought I knew who the killer was, and I actually did because it's a highly popular movie that's been out for over decades. But I thought I just like I knew who the slasher was, but because of how many twists and turns there were in the movie, they actually had me second guessing myself until they actually finally revealed who it was, and I was like, oh, he was a slasher. And then there was multiple slashers too, which I didn't see coming, which was actually interesting. I was like, oh snap, there's multiple slashers. That was actually a cool, fun plot twist, and I thought this movie was definitely very enjoyable. And at number one, at a 9.5, actually one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm serious. I'm actually someone who actually needs to watch more movies. So many big, highly regarded movies that I just haven't seen that I do need to check out. But this is actually one of my favorite movies. At a 9.5, Saw. I thought Saw was great from start to finish. This was a movie that had tons of like twists and turns at every corner. It's like, oh my gosh, what's happening next? You don't know what's going on. And then they pull out a new surprise. And then it was wild. I thought it was a great story, a great, unique, interesting story. Twists and turns from start to finish. I thought all the cast members did a really good job. And I had a really great time with this movie. So at number one is for sure Saw. Those are the scary movies, horror films, slasher films, whatever you want to call them. Those are the ones I saw this month. I'll probably run it back next year. I'll pull up a new ranking, a new batch of movies. But these are the batch I saw. And for the most part, these were all very enjoyable. Even the ones to the Lawrence that weren't so good. Seeing just these slasher films in action is very fun to see.